us evidence. We have made multiple requests. You have not acceded to a request, but every time you go around saying things in the public domain. And now you have gone to the extent of actually implicating our High Commissioner to Canada, a diplomat of impeccable credentials, Sanjay Verma, someone I have known very closely. And of course, I think from that perspective, this is clearly unacceptable to us. And I think that's the tenor of what the MEA will convey to the Canadian Chargé d'Affaires, when he is met by his counterpart.
Mr. Shringla, the political differences apart between two governments, right? I mean, between two ruling parties, and there is a thin line between domestic politics and diplomacy, and often between India and Canada. We've seen that thin line being crossed, being broken again and again. In your view and in your observation as a foreign secretary, how delicate have the ties been under the leadership of Justin Trudeau?
So, India and Canada, have the potentials to take that relationship significantly forward. We are two vibrant democracies. We are multi-ethnic communities. And I think that given the fact that we have a significant diaspora in Canada, and there are a lot of Indian students also who are pursuing their higher studies in Canada, there is a huge amount of scope to take that relationship, forward. But unfortunately, the government of Prime Minister Trudeau has used the relationship, for their domestic political ends. And they are reliant on a party, and the leader of that party clearly supports a separatist narrative that is unacceptable to us. And as long as he's pandering to this section of the population, which is a small section, but nonetheless a vocal section which seems to have leverage on his, political base, the relationship will be constantly under attack and under threat, as we have seen. And time and again, I think this narrative has come out that try and separate the relationship from your domestic politics and look at the larger gains that the country will achieve by pursuing a relationship that is positive with a country like India that can offer so much in terms of mutual benefit to both countries. But Trudeau has somehow, ignored this rational perspective and gone on to really vitiating the atmosphere by bringing in domestic politics and making the relationship hostage to his own domestic, I would say, compulsions.
Yes. Have you seen the MEA use such language before? The strong language that we have seen perhaps indicates that India has had enough with leaders like Trudeau. What next? How far do you think the government is going to go in response to this move by Canada to try and involve our diplomats?
I think if you look at the statement, the press statement that was issued today, it's not only a fairly lengthy statements by MEA standards, but also a very strong statement, as you mentioned. And I think it has highlighted the fact that, Justin Trudeau in particular and the Canadian government in general have not been forthcoming in terms of, what we expect from the relationship, that the relationship has been politicized, that you have made allegations in the public domain, but there is not a shred of evidence to support those allegations, despite multiple requests from India. And of course, that you are using, this is a deliberate strategy that you're using for your own political gains. This is an anti-Indian narrative, and it's basically the investigation being weaponized for domestic reasons. And I think this is as strong as it can get. We have made several extradition requests also, it says, for people who are involved in acts of terrorism, extortion, gun running, drug smuggling, etc. It is in Canada's interest to cooperate on these, because if they allow this sort of situation to continue, it will impact adversely on Canada's social fabric. But Trudeau has not responded in positive terms. And I think the MEA is compelled, the government of India is compelled to make a strong statement to summon the Chargés d'Affaires, and it could lead to other steps by India as well I mean, keep in mind that we've already taken certain steps. We've at one stage we had stopped issuing visas. We have asked the Canadians to reduce their diplomatic strength to bring it in line with our own diplomatic strength in Canada. A number of other steps. The Canadians have stopped trade talks, which could lead to a trade deal. So there has been a to and fro, and a number of steps have been taken by both sides. But there are other recourses that we have available with us. But we have to see the relationship from a larger perspective, and we have to keep in mind that other governments that may come in place of Trudeau might take a sort of a longer-term view, a more strategic view of the relationship, and might take a more visionary, and statesman-like perspective. And I think this is what the expectation is, and this is what we should keep in mind, so that you don't entirely, let's say, put the relationship in deep freeze. You keep the channels of communication open, you keep your diplomatic modes open, but at the same time, you make it clear that we cannot tolerate this continued sniping in the public domain without any substantial evidence to back it up. And I think that actually represents, in many senses, a direct attack on us in terms of the inferences that you're drawing. And we need to definitely respond to this in whichever way is possible.
My last question to you, Mr. Shringla. The government has said, the MEA has said in its detailed statement that the Canadian government has not shared a shred of evidence with the government of India despite many requests from our side, adding that this leaves little doubt that on the pretext of an investigation, there is a deliberate strategy of smearing India for political gains. And my specific question to you, taking off from this point, is to India, the Khalistanis and the Khalistani movement is nothing but something that borders on terror, borders on separatism. And these are terrorist groups that we are talking about, which have been openly getting support from the Canadian establishment. People like Trudeau have been openly backing a terrorist movement in India's view. And when these so-called Western nations lecture India on democracy, lecture India on freedom of speech, and how, in your view, how do these countries look at something like this, a government that is, the Canadian government, when it's hobnobbing with terrorists, right? How do they respond to such antics?
Well, clearly, they are looking at it from their perspective and their domestic perspective. But at the same time, I think it has to be made clear that, from a larger point of view, this is obviously something that impacts on the relationship, because you can't sustain this sort of, I would say, policy which impacts directly on the relationship. Keep in mind, you mentioned the Sikh community. The Sikh community consists of 2% of Canada's population, about 770,000 individuals. But the radicals, the anti-national elements are a very small percentage of this, but they're a vocal part of that community. And they're espousing a cause that has no traction back in India. So the Canadians, in a certain sense, are adding fuel, or rather are allowing this narrative to go through when there is absolutely no basis for that relationship. And there is nobody in our country that is saying that we want a separate state. The Sikhs are some of the most progressive and successful communities in India. And by supporting this narrative, I think the Canadians are doing themselves and, of course, their communities a huge disservice. And I think it would be in their interest to clamp down on the small and vocal community and allow the relationship to flourish and progress. And that would be far better for the majority of Canadians than pandering to this very small and vocal community that supports Justin Trudeau in his political career.
Yeah. Mr. Shringla, at the end of it, I think everybody is seen through the Trudeau government and the antics also, because Trudeau's popularity, as we know it, and is being reported openly even by the Canadian press, has hit rock bottom. And we know that ahead of elections, this could be a stunt. I'm not sure whether the people of Canada would buy that. I thank you for joining us on This Is Exclusive this evening. Harsh Shringla, the former Foreign Secretary, joining us live as India-Canada diplomatic ties hit rock bottom. Thank you very much. Sir, I'm moving on to the next breaking news update that's now coming in the case of the Baba Siddiqui murder. Let me go across straight to that because, thank you, sir, thank you. We have breaking news now coming in that the Mumbai crime branch has received intel about the third accused, Shiva, hiding in Ujjain. Besides the Mumbai crime branch, police from Ujjain and Khandwa are also conducting searches. In Ujjain, searches have been carried out in several locations, including Begum Bagh, the railway station, bus stand, jail road. Searches have also taken place in hotels, lodges. Satya Vijay is in Ujjain on the police searching for the third accused in the Baba Siddiqui murder. Let me go across to Satya Vijay. Satya Vijay, what more do we know at this point about the third accused, his whereabouts in Ujjain? Let's play out what Satya Vijay sent us a few minutes back. Here's a report.
मुंबई में एनसीपी नेता बाबा सिद्दीकी की हत्या के बाद एक आरोपी का इनपुट है कि वो उज्जैन में हो सकता है, जिसका नाम शिव कुमार गौतम है। और उज्जैन में चप्पे चप्पे पर पुलिस की टीम सर्चिंग कर रही है। आप तस्वीरें देखिए, ये सर्चिंग की तस्वीरें हैं जिसमें डॉग स्क्वाड की टीम भी है और उज्जैन पुलिस है। इसके अलावा महाराष्ट्र से मुंबई क्राइम ब्रांच की टीम भी यहाँ पर आई हुई है और जो शिव कुमार गौतम है उसके फरार होकर उज्जैन में छिपे होने के इनपुट्स पुलिस को मिले हैं, जिसके बाद ये सर्चिंग की जा रही है। चूंकि जो हमारे सूत्र हैं और पुलिस का ये दावा है कि जो धार्मिक स्थल होते हैं जहां पर भी वहां सस्ते लॉज, धर्मशाला या ऐसी जगह उपलब्ध होती है जहां पर कि आरोपी आसानी से छुप सकते हैं, इसीलिए हो सकता है जो आरोपी है वो यहाँ उज्जैन में हो। इसीलिए उज्जैन के बस स्टैंड, रेलवे स्टेशन, इस समय हम बेगम बाग इलाके में यहाँ पर भी पुलिस की टीम जो है सर्चिंग कर रही है। हम आपको लाइव तस्वीरें दिखा रहे हैं जिसमें कि पुलिस की टीम जितने भी संदिग्ध लोग हैं उनसे पूछताछ कर रही है। इसके अलावा जहां जहां पुलिस को इनपुट मिल रहा है वहां पुलिस की टीम जा रही है और मुंबई पुलिस की टीम भी उज्जैन पुलिस की टीम के साथ सर्चिंग में लगी हुई है। सबसे बड़ी बात यह है कि जिस तरह से एनसीपी नेता की हत्या की गई, कॉन्ट्रैक्ट किलिंग की गई, उसके बाद पूरे देश में इसी खबर को लेकर चर्चा है, क्योंकि लॉरेंस बिश्नोई जो गैंग है उसने पूरे हत्याकांड की जिम्मेदारी ली है और इसके बाद से उसी गैंग से जुड़े लोग जहां जहां हो सकते हैं उनकी सर्चिंग के लिए, उनकी तलाश के लिए पुलिस की टीमें लगी हुई हैं। न सिर्फ उत्तर प्रदेश, हरियाणा, इसके अलावा मध्य प्रदेश का भी कनेक्शन जुड़ गया और ये जो आप तस्वीरें देख रहे हैं ये उज्जैन के कई ऐसे इलाके हैं जहां पर कि हम मौजूद हैं। पुलिस की टीम जो है वो सर्चिंग कर रही है और पूरे दलबल के साथ ही सर्चिंग की जा रही है, क्योंकि पुलिस को ऐसे पुख्ता इनपुट हैं कि जो एक फरार आरोपी है हत्याकांड में शामिल शिव कुमार गौतम, जिसने कि इस पूरे मामले का सुपारी ली थी कॉन्ट्रैक्ट किलिंग के लिए, उसके इनपुट जो है वो हमें यहाँ से मिले हैं पुलिस को कि वो उज्जैन में हो सकता है और इसी लिहाज से ये जो सर्चिंग है वो यहाँ पर उज्जैन की इन गलियों में की जा रही है। तो ये हमने तस्वीरें आपको दिखाई। इसी तरह पुलिस की टीम उज्जैन में जगह जगह पर सर्चिंग कर रही है। इनका ये तर्क है, ये दावा है कि अगर आरोपी उज्जैन में कहीं भी होगा तो उसे ढूंढकर जल्द से जल्द गिरफ्तार किया जाएगा।
ये कौन से गैंग के है शिवा? कौन से गैंग के है सत्य विजय? Which gang does he belong to? What more do we know about the third accused in Ujjain?
जी देखिए, अब तक का जो इनपुट है उसके मुताबिक शिव कुमार गौतम इसी ने सुपारी ली थी लॉरेंस बिश्नोई गैंग से और शिव कुमार गौतम के ही कहने पर फायरिंग वहां पर की गई जहां पर कि बाबा सिद्दीकी की हत्या हुई। अब चूंकि जब सिद्धू मूसेवाला की हत्या हुई थी 2000
Yes, sir. Mind लगा हुआ है ना? The government of Canada has done what India has long been asking for. Canada has provided credible, irrefutable evidence of ties between agents of the government of India and a murder of a Canadian citizen on Canadian soil. Now it is time for India to live up to what it said it would do and look into those allegations. It is in the interest of both our countries and the peoples of our countries to get to the bottom of this. Canada stands ready to cooperate with India.
The Canadian Charge d'Affaires there, the Canadian Charge d'Affaires making a statement after being summoned by the Ministry of External Affairs. The Canadian Charge d'Affaires claims there is irrefutable evidence. India has countered that claim strongly, saying that since the Prime Minister of Canada, Trudeau, made certain allegations in September 2023, the Canadian government has not shared a shred of evidence with the government of India despite many requests from our side. And that this latest step follows interactions that have again witnessed assertions without any facts. That's the official Indian stand, even though Canadian diplomats maintain and claim that there is evidence that has been shared. If there was evidence shared, then where is that evidence? What is that evidence? Because the government of India has said clearly that there is not a shred of evidence given by the Canadian government under Trudeau since making those allegations 1 year ago in September 2023. I'm going to play out that soundbite once again. That Canadian Charge d'Affaires made a statement minutes after his meeting at the Ministry of External Affairs. He was summoned by India following a very, very strong response to the diplomatic communication that came in from Canada initially, saying that India has said in its response that they received a diplomatic communication from Canada on Sunday suggesting that the Indian High Commissioner and other diplomats are persons of interest in a matter related to an investigation in that country. Here's the response to the Canadian diplomat after being summoned by the MEA today.
Good evening, ladies and gentlemen. I have a statement to make. The government of Canada has done what India has long been asking for. Canada has provided credible, irrefutable evidence of ties between agents of the government of India and a murder of a Canadian citizen on Canadian soil. Now it is time for India to live up to what it said it would do and look into those allegations. It is in the interest of both our countries and the peoples of our countries to get to the bottom of this. Canada stands ready to cooperate with India.
We'll take a short break. That was a statement that came in from the Canadian Charge d'Affaires. Canada once again claiming there is evidence when it has shared none. Taking a break, back with the headlines and the debate at 8 p.m. with Arnab on Trudeau's true face being unmasked, trying to drag in Indian High Commissioner, Indian diplomats into this. Stay tuned.
India-Canada diplomatic showdown. MEA calls out Trudeau's vote bank politics. India stand clear, no more smear campaign. Debating tonight at 8 p.m.
$13,000 placements last year. At Amity, we are committed to nurturing passionate, hardworking and proactive professionals.
India women's cricket team displayed an absolute masterclass against Sri Lanka, securing an emphatic 82-run victory in the ICC Women's T20 World Cup. Indian side dominated both with the bat and the ball, eliminating Sri Lanka from the competition and pushing India to second place in Group A. Skipper Harmanpreet Kaur led by example, delivering an explosive 52 not out of just 27 balls. Her aggressive knock with 8 boundaries and a 6 earned her the Player of the Match title. With a blazing display, Kaur not only stabilized the innings but set the tone for a big score, allowing India to post an imposing total of 172 at loss of 3 wickets. Opening the innings, Smriti Mandhana and Shefali Verma put together a crucial 98-run partnership. Mandhana was at her fluent best, scoring 50 of 38 balls, while Shefali contributed a valuable 43 of 40 deliveries. Their dynamic start laid a solid foundation, setting up India's highest score in the tournament so far. In response, Sri Lanka struggled to keep up with the steep chase. Despite some early resistance, they were bundled out for 90 runs in 19.5 overs. Arundhati Reddy shone with the ball, taking 3 wickets of just 19 runs. Asha Sobhana also chipped in with an identical 3-wicket haul, while Renuka Thakur Singh impressed with figures of 2 for 16 runs. India's disciplined bowling and sharp fielding kept the Sri Lankan batters under constant pressure, ensuring a comprehensive victory. This thumping win has significantly boosted India's net run rate to plus 0.576, strengthening their position in Group A. But the journey is far from over. With Australia, Pakistan and New Zealand still vying for semi-final spots, every match becomes critical. Up next for India is a crucial showdown against reigning champions Australia in Sharjah on October 13. A win there could push India to the top of the group with 6 points, but the stakes remain high. If Australia clinches their game against Pakistan before facing India, both teams could be tied on 6 points, making net run rate the deciding factor for qualification. Meanwhile, New Zealand also remain in contention, capable of reaching 6 points if they win their final matches against Pakistan and Sri Lanka. For India, the match against Australia is a must-win, and despite that victory, India's fate would be reliant on the results between New Zealand and Sri Lanka. India need to win their game against Australia and hope either of New Zealand or Pakistan lose at least one game. If India loses to Australia, then they almost certainly will be knocked out in the group stages itself. Harmanpreet and her squad know that while their performance against Sri Lanka was dominant, they cannot afford to relax. With Australia being a formidable opponent, every aspect of the game, from batting partnerships to bowling strategies, must be executed to perfection. India's women's team has shown their prowess with a superb all-round performance. Will Harmanpreet's side continue their dominant run and secure a place in the semi-finals, or will the road ahead prove to be tougher than anticipated?
ومن هنا نؤكد أن المقاومة الإسلامية في العراق باتت عملياتها تمثل جبهة إسناد أولى للبنان وغزة، وإنما اعترف به العدو الصهيوني بخسائر من عمليات المقاومة الإسلامية في العراق ما هو إلا غيظ من فيض.
India-Canada diplomatic showdown. MEA calls out Trudeau's vote bank politics. India stand clear, no more smear campaign. Debating tonight at 8 p.m. Over 226 hours on, doctors' fast unto death continues. Doctors undeterred by Mamata government's apathy. Battle for justice continues. When will Mamata act? Debating tonight at 8:30 p.m. Massive showdown over Baba Siddiqui's murder. Baba Siddiqui murder, mafia in top focus. Questions unanswered. Who is behind murder plot? Debating tonight at 9 p.m. Over 226 hours on, doctors' fast unto death continues. Doctors undeterred by Mamata government's apathy. Battle for justice continues. When will Mamata act? Debating tonight at 8:30 p.m.
All right, a big breaking news development coming in. India has withdrawn its High Commissioner from Canada. Apart from Ambassador Sanjay Verma, who's going to be coming back to New Delhi, other diplomatic staff members whose life has been under threat of Khalistani extremists in Canada, in Ottawa, in Toronto, they are going to be called back. This is a big move by India, essentially upping the ante on the indulgence that the Trudeau government has been having with the Khalistani elements, extremists compromising India's territorial integrity and sovereignty from Canadian soil. And after issuing a démarche to the Canadian Chargés d'Affaires in New Delhi, Stewart Wheeler, and telling Stewart Wheeler that the manner in which Canadian government has conducted itself, we have no faith in the assurances that it has given to take care of the safety of our diplomatic staff, and hence the government of India has decided to withdraw the High Commissioner and the other targeted diplomats and officials. India has also conveyed to Canada that we will take further steps in response to Trudeau government's support for extremism, violence and separatism against India. This is a strong statement coming in from the Ministry of External Affairs after having summoned the Chargés d'Affaires to the MEA headquarters in the South Block. And the summons was by Secretary East, and then the Chargés d'Affaires was informed that the baseless targeting of the Indian High Commissioner and other diplomats and officials in Canada was completely unacceptable. It was also underlined that in an atmosphere of extremism and violence, the Trudeau government's actions endangered their safety, and that India no more has faith in the current Canadian government's commitment to ensure their security, and hence the government of India has decided to withdraw the High Commissioner and other targeted diplomats and officials. Remember, last evening Canada had conveyed to the government of India, and this is the Chargés d'Affaires, the Deputy High Commissioner of Canada, Stewart Wheeler, talking to press. He's brazening it out. Let's listen to him. Okay, we play the bite in exactly 20 seconds that Stewart Wheeler, the Deputy High Commissioner of Canada to New Delhi, he's the Chargés d'Affaires as of now, and he was summoned by Secretary East to the Ministry of External Affairs. And let's listen to him.
Good evening, ladies and gentlemen. I have a statement to make. Hold on. The government of Canada has done what India has long been asking for. Canada has provided credible, irrefutable evidence of ties between agents of the government of India and a murder of a Canadian citizen on Canadian soil. Now it is time for India to live up to what it said it would do and look into those allegations. It is in the interest of both our countries and the peoples of our countries. To get to the bottom of this, Canada stands ready to cooperate with India.
All right, that was Stewart Wheeler, the Chargé Affairs of Canada, still brazening it out, saying that we have provided some information, credible allegations now become credible information, which India, of course, has refuted. India has maintained all along that over the last year and a half, Canada has not provided any information whatsoever in connection with the murder of Khalistani terrorist Hardeep Singh Nijjar and the connection of that murder with any India-based agents or anyone within the government. Madhav Nalapat, strategic affairs expert, joins us over the phone. Mr. Nalapat, the Canadian Deputy High Commissioner choosing to brazen it out despite Canada having not provided any information whatsoever about what credible allegations Justin Trudeau has been talking about. But more importantly, Mr. Nalapat, India has really upped the ante and named and shamed Justin Trudeau personally. You think this is a new low insofar as India-Canada relationship is concerned under Justin Trudeau?
Well, I'd like to say the MEA has acted correctly, naming Justin Trudeau, and it's also very clear that the Canadian High Commission has become a nest for facilitation of anti-India elements, separatist elements, elements committed to violence, and you can check the way these some of the diplomats there have been functioning. Check their conversations with their Canadian counterparts, and you'll understand what I mean. There are several individuals of concern in the Canadian Embassy High Commission in New Delhi who are basically consorting with those who are known to favor violent means to overthrow the government of India, assassinate leaders in India, and frankly, create acts of mayhem and violence in several parts of India. So this is going on. And I would like to point out one thing very clearly. The K group is not representative of the Sikh community at all. And frankly, as far as Khalistan is concerned, I think the natural home for Khalistan would be in Pakistan.
Yeah, absolutely. Thank you so much, Mr. Nalapat, for those details. You, of course, would be joining in the conversation at 8 p.m. On Super Prime Time Max with Arnav Goswami on the manner in which Canada has indulged in. All right, I'm told Ms. Veena Sikri is joining us, Ambassador Veena Sikri, also on the phone. Good evening to you, ma'am. And you think that India has done the right thing by naming and shaming Justin Trudeau for his personal hostility with which he has conducted the India-Canada relationship?
Absolutely right. I think the government of India has taken the right decision at the right time. At the moment the news came about this, naming our High Commissioner and others, our government put out a very strongly worded note, absolutely stating the correct sequence of events and how Prime Minister Trudeau himself has been personally responsible for this deteriorating relations between India and Canada. We know earlier on, 41 Canadian diplomats were asked to withdraw from India. And now this time we have called back the Indian High Commissioner in Canada, and I think this is the right decision at this time. I think it shows to all the world because the note that our government put out earlier laid down the facts, laid down how India is absolutely not involved with this. In fact, today there has been reporting that there is a difference of opinion between the government of Canada and the Royal Canadian Mounted Police, because Royal Canadian Mounted Police has not been able to give any evidence about the accusations which the government of Canada is making against India. And India has consistently been asking for evidence. The evidence has not been provided. Still, the government of Canada has gone ahead and made this absolutely preposterous allegation earlier today. And now our government has reacted properly. We put out a note, and now we have withdrawn our High Commissioner. Absolutely correct.
All right, ma'am. Thank you so much. That was Ambassador Veena Sikri expressing the views of India's strategic and diplomatic community. In fact, Harshvardhan Shringla, India's former foreign secretary, joins us also on the phone. Very good evening to you, Mr. Shringla.
Good evening.
And the fact that India has really named and shamed Justin Trudeau and now recalled its ambassador, you think this is the right step to take and to let the world community know the manner in which Canada is compromising India's territorial integrity and sovereignty?
No, absolutely. I think we have gone through a lot from Canada, and there have been a number of provocations which have been all on specious and unsubstantiated grounds. I think recalling a High Commissioner or Ambassador is a fairly major step in diplomatic relations. As far as I can recall, the only other country from whom we have recalled our High Commissioner is Pakistan. So from that perspective, I think this is quite a major step, and one that I think has been warranted from the recent actions of the Justin Trudeau government in sort of naming our High Commissioner and senior High Commission officials as persons of interest in their investigation, which, as I've mentioned before, has absolutely no shred of evidence to substantiate. It is clearly a political tool for domestic purposes, and the investigation itself, as the MEA has said, has been weaponized, for domestic political purposes.
Right.
So clearly, it's also our safety and security that we have to be worried about. But in addition to that, it is a very major, I would say, gesture on the part of India to Canada that you cannot go on in this manner. Hello?
Yeah, Mr. Shringla, I believe Sucharita is just connecting. Till that, if I could ask a question to you, a follow-up question. The last time we heard of India withdrawing its envoy was, of course, Pakistan in 2019. In that sense, this is a major escalation. Do you recall any other country from which India has withdrawn its envoy because of a standoff in recent memory?
It's not recent, but clearly in the past we have done that. I think we have withdrawn our High Commissioner from Pakistan, but that's because they withdrew their High Commissioner also. But even earlier, we had withdrawn our High Commissioner. I think there are other instances in the past where we have taken certain steps, but most of the time it is done in a different way, where you just recall the ambassador and he doesn't go back. But here, I think it has been a deliberate act to call him back, and I think it is. It comes in the wake, as I said, of major provocations, repeated provocations from Canada's part, and I think there is no justification for the sort of shenanigans that we've had to put up with at the diplomatic level. And I think it is best that we send a fairly strong signal of displeasure to Canada and Justin Trudeau's government for their actions, in recent years, that have been directed against India's national interests.
And I think, Mr. Shringla, if you could just point it out to our viewers, because India has been very, very furious, and it has given out a clear message to Canada that it will not be taking the allegations lying down. And I think this messaging from India, how important do you think it is? Because India-Canada ties, when it comes to students, when it comes to work visas, is very, very important for both the countries. But India is giving out a clear message.
Yeah, absolutely. It's a very clear statement. On our part, as you said, it's in diplomatic terms, this is a major step. Recalling a High Commissioner really means that you are maintaining diplomatic relations, but without a top envoy in place. And from that perspective, I think it is a strong message to the Canadian government. But from the point of view of the relationship, we have to still see the potential is there. We do have a people-to-people relationship. There are, as you mentioned, a lot of Indian students who do their higher studies in Canada, and that part of the relationship goes on. That is not affected. But certainly at the diplomatic level, this point has been made fairly seriously.
Mr. Shringla, because we are letting you go because we are told that you have to go somewhere. And Sucharita, this is hugest escalation that we have seen India carrying out in recent times when it comes to diplomatic partnerships. Canada traditionally would be seen as a friendly nation, but the manner in which it has conducted itself over the last couple of years under Justin Trudeau, it clearly smacks of a very personal hostility that Justin Trudeau seems to be having against India. And an example of which is that there are fugitives of law who have applied for Canadian permanent residency, and they have been given citizenship. Their applications have been fast-tracked, and which sends a clear message that Canada would indulge, Canada would patronize, Canada would shelter and harbor anti-India elements. It has been doing so for a while, and it sort of has peaked under Justin Trudeau, particularly during his second term. And Justin Trudeau seems to be beholden to these elements, Khalistani separatists, and because of which we have seen parades taking place in Canada, in Ottawa, in Toronto, where we have seen India's leadership being targeted and threats to assassinate them being openly given. And the Canadian establishment has protected that under freedom of speech argument. And we have seen our ambassador facing threats, because of which the Canadian security agencies themselves have upgraded their security. We have seen our ambassador being targeted and other diplomatic staff in High Commission and also the consulate in Ottawa and Toronto respectively being targeted. And despite that, Canada continues to maintain this farce that they have some credible information about the role of Indian agencies in the killing of Khalistani terrorist Hardeep Singh Nijjar, who, by the way, was on a no-fly list of Canada and United States both.
It's clearly giving out a message, Abhishek. India is furious as its diplomats have been declared persons of interest. And very clearly, as I say, India is very outrightly rejecting all kinds of preposterous imputations. We are not going to take these charges lying down, is what India is telling Canada when it's recalling its High Commissioner and other diplomats back to India. Now, very important messaging, and that's exactly what I was talking to Mr. Shringla right before he was live with us. And very importantly, India is not going to take these charges lying down. When we're calling our ambassador, we're recalling our diplomats, we are giving out a clear message. I was just speaking to him about the kind of the students that go to Canada from India, the Canadian students coming to India. There is also an exchange of the work visas between the two countries. So very importantly, important aspects being shared between the two countries, and India giving out a message that we will not be taking these preposterous allegations against our diplomats. And whatever is going to be at stake, India is going to deal with it later, but we are going to give out a clear signaling at the global stage, because this is going to be a big announcement that India has made, recalling its diplomats. And as I speak, the diplomats are going to, the ambassadors, the High Commissioner is going to be coming back, the other diplomats are going to be coming back. And when we say this, Abhishek, we're also talking about the kind of possibilities that could happen after the High Commissioner being recalled. Now, we are going to be elaborating on that as well. Please tell us, because you've been covering the External Affairs Ministry for so long, Abhishek. You know that these are not escalations that happen in a day. They take time, and India has been following this matter for the last 1 year. But after Indian ambassadors being called persons of interest, India has actually taken a big step. And how do you see this escalation? How do you think it would have worked?
No, there is an immediate trigger and a big provocation, Sucharita, coming in from the Canadian side, where they communicated yesterday that India's ambassador, India's High Commissioner to Canada, Ambassador Sanjay Verma, is a person of interest in an ongoing investigation, which obviously is the investigation into the murder, into the killing of Khalistani terrorist Hardeep Singh Nijjar. And apart from Ambassador Verma, there are a couple of more members of the Indian diplomatic team in Ottawa who are under the radar of Canadian agencies. That's the communication that came from Canadian side, to which India has responded very strongly and called out Justin Trudeau for a very personal hostility that he has been showing towards India, which is effectively translating into the kind of absolutely rabid anti-India positions sometimes we are seeing coming out of the Canadian establishment and administration. And India now deciding that it has to go all out and make sure that India is heard loud and clear, not just in Canada, but around the world, for the manner in which Canada is holding its foreign policy hostage to a very personal hostility that Prime Minister Justin Trudeau shows. On that note, we're going into a short break. Coming on the other side, a hot debate on what Canada wants, why Justin Trudeau is up to this farcical anti-India hate from Canadian soil. That and more at Super Primetime Max with Arnab Goswami at 8.
India-Canada diplomatic showdown. MEA calls out Trudeau's vote bank politics. India stand clear, no more smear campaign. Debating tonight at 8 p.m.
13,000 placements last year. At Amity, we are committed to nurturing passionate, hardworking and proactive professionals.